Here to share a short story about driving resiliency and sustainability with digital, we have the Senior Vice President and Chief Supply Chain Officer for Honeywell, Torsten Pilz.
Did I click it? All right. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do at Honeywell and how we kind of make it a reality, what you guys learn here at school. So what does it look in the industrial world? What does digitization, sustainability, resiliency, what does it mean for a pretty big company? Let me introduce, so first to my point, I'm responsible for supply chain at Honeywell. I'm actually the first chief supply chain officer Honeywell ever had, because a couple of years ago, the CEO came to the conclusion that one of the very critical functions that determines the probability of success for an industrial conglomerate like Honeywell is its ability to supply to its customers. And so they made a decision, the board made a decision that they need to institutionalize this in the company, and hence I have the pleasure of building this and doing this. And before I joined Honeywell a couple of years ago, I ran supply chain for SpaceX, and before that I was at Amazon. So I've been doing stuff like that for a little bit, and I'm super happy to share with you what we do, and whenever there's any question of anybody, just shoot me a note, and we get in contact and have a conversation. It's great. I love that stuff. So Honeywell first, we are a conglomerate that is more than 100 years old. Everybody knows probably the Honeywell thermostat. We don't make them anymore. We spun off that business 5 years ago, so we're not in that business anymore. But what we do is we have four big units, and the most important one, the biggest one, is Honeywell Aerospace. So we do a lot of things. We've been on every NASA space mission. We make aircraft engines, we make cockpits for airplanes, we make the wheels and brakes for big airplanes. We make a lot of components for aircraft, helicopters, things like that. So Boeing, Airbus, our main, Bombardier, those are our main customers which we deliver to. And we have a business called Honeywell Building Technologies. So we are in the business of controlling commercial buildings, like hotels, like big office buildings. The largest or tallest building in the world, the Burj Khalifa in the Middle East, we manage the technology of that business, of that building in there. And why it's important, it's an integration of the HVAC systems, the access controls, fire systems, all of this. So that's what we do. And here comes sustainability into play, because it's right now, that business is growing so fast because half of all the greenhouse gas emissions in the world come from buildings. Come from heating buildings, air conditioning buildings. It's half of all the emissions. So it's very, very important to be very smart about how you manage and control how these buildings are run. Performance materials, what they used to do is they still do, they produce a lot of chemicals. So we produce chemicals for instance, refrigerants. So what we have is the lowest greenhouse gas emission refrigerant that you can buy. It's meanwhile in all big countries, in all big companies, and all big cars is the standard of refrigerants. Any car you buy in the US has that refrigerant because it's the lowest greenhouse gas emission product that you can buy. But the cool thing about that business is there's one business unit in here that's called Sustainability Technology Solutions. What they do is they are in the business of building sustainable products on an industrial scale. Those are large-scale batteries, those are carbon capture technology things, and As I told you, I used to work at Amazon for a while, and at that time we were growing 25, 30% year over year, and I thought that was like pretty good. That was like really, really steep growth rate. That sustainability technology business right now grows 300% each year, and not on a $2 million starting baseline. It's unbelievable. It's just out of this world. I've never seen anything like that. There's a whole world now has understood that, oh man, we got to do something about it. And somebody needs to do, I mean, to plan for it is one thing, but to make it a reality, you need actually technology to do it. And it's not that simple to build huge, large-scale batteries, for instance, to buffer energy that's produced in a wind park. To do this at an industrial scale is really challenging. And the last one is safety and productivity solutions, which is a business that is very in the supply chain business. So we build warehouse automation in that. We actually make our own warehouse automation system from a software perspective. So, but we also make very simple things like earplugs. So what I wanted to say is with this overview is the complex supply chain complexity of a big company is grounded in the proliferation of its portfolio. We buy 5 million different products in the catalog. Only 1 million of those we buy each year. So that means the other 4 I buy every other year or every 3 years because we don't consume them so much. We have 1.5 million SKUs that we actually sell. So you can imagine the management of inventory. How do you plan this? Where do you manufacture this? This is a big problem. This is basically an operations problem, and this is a problem where everything you guys learn at school that you can apply this instantly in all kinds of fashions. Now, if we look at this, we also not only have a very broad scope in terms of in which markets are we present and what do we do, but also where do we do. So we do this on each continent outside the Antarctica. So it's also really a global view, and you know, you sometimes hear people, well, it's how do we do this in the US, and we don't really care about where this is. So we consider us a global company, and we have people from all over the world, and you see I'm a non, although I sound probably I come from New Jersey, but I'm not. I come from Europe, and so we are a very diverse team, and we come from all over. The CEO was born in Poland, and so it's a very interesting culture that we have. And but one thing is everybody is kind of aligned to it. It's a very engineering world culture. So we're not. Some companies are marketing driven, others are more employee centric. We're very technical. Most of them, our leaders are all engineers, and this is how we think. We think in numbers, and we think in like ins and outs. If we talk about, now let's go back from the forget the company stuff. Now let's go into what we think is on the supply chain side. What are the future trends? Now, we saw the list, and I read the Gartner stuff too, and so it's all good, but let's focus on 3 things. Yes, AI, machine learning is going to be the future, and it's technology, it's all important, but it's still the biggest problem that every company has, every supply chain-oriented company has, is people. And it still is people. It has been people always, and it still is people. There is not enough talent out there to manage a complex supply chain of any company, let alone of a country, in a perfect way. There's always imperfection in these systems. That's why you have buffers everywhere. You have inventory, you have all kinds of delays, and the biggest problem still is talent. And one of the reasons why I'm here today is because I recognize this, and I'm very engaged and connected to a lot of great schools like this one. But it is absolutely important for us to recognize that talent needs to be educated, needs to be given opportunities, and good things will happen. And so I invite everybody to, and I congratulate everybody that you picked that subject. I mean, if I remember maybe a couple of years ago when I was at a party, I would tell people what I'm doing for a living, they would just start yawning. Nobody cared. And now, everybody flocks to me and asks me for a job for their children. So that's how life changes, and that's why supply chain has become so more important and so more at the forefront of things, and it's a great thing. But it requires talent, it requires education. And I'm going to tell you what we do, and maybe this helps you understand how the work works. Now, machine learning and AI is something, in supply chain is actually really simple. Although people tell you it's difficult, it's not difficult. There is a supply and there's a demand. There's a demand and supply. And somehow you need to synchronize this in the most efficient way possible. And the problem with this is it is a multidimensional problem that no human brain can actually really comprehend. So you need some sort of help. And the biggest help in supply chain management over the last 20 years is Excel. Now, if you really want to evolve to the next level, to the next step, if you want to stop doing stupid things that you've done in the past, you need to find something else. But the fundamental problem to connect supply and demand in the most efficient way remains the same. But the thing is, this supply chain technology, all around planning, execution, end-to-end connectivity, visibility, all these buzzwords that you all hear in your classroom, will be supported in a better way through machine learning and AI than it used to be in the past. That's just fundamentally true. And but hey, the race is on. Nobody knows who's going to win this. There are a couple of people out there who provide all kinds of technologies, and we will see how this all fits together. It is a time. If you remember back in the 80s, and some of you might remember that, when the big push for large-scale ERP systems really hit the big companies. You know, an SAP came, and Oracle came, and something. So that revolutionized basically how big enterprises operated, because it connected financial data with enterprise-level decisions. It connected very remote parts of companies and really made it happen that you can run them efficiently. This technology revolution we are just witnessing is going to do the same to how supply chains are managed. Because there is no mystery and no myth anymore. Supply chains very easy and simple to understand if you know what's actually going on, if you know the data, if you have real-time information of what's going on. And you can make decisions. Problem in supply chain is that you always make decisions after the fact. Most times you make decisions after the fact. You already are in the hole. Now you try to figure out how do I get out of this. And that's a fundamental problem. You try to the more you get to real-time information, the better your chances are to make the right decisions. And when I say ERPs, the extension of supply chain management into financial integration, that is the next part that is so important. Because right now, most supply chain management is traditionally around material planning. You know, it is to have the right stuff at the right time, at the right place in the world at some point, to fulfill the demand. But it's very loosely integrated to financial decision-making, or how a company actually really operates. It always needs a translation. It always needs the ops guy who tells the other guys, okay, pay attention to this because that's important. And that's going to change too. So the integration of all of this is going to be the future of supply chain management. But in order to do this, you can only imagine, you can't be you have to have really good understanding of details, because you need to be a domain expert, but at the same time, the end-to-end and the integration of everything in a business, this is the kicker as we go forward. And you need great people. So when we talk about resiliency, and I switch a little bit the topic now to resiliency, we have, Honeywell has about 200 factories. And we never believed in global supply chains, believe it or not. We never did. We never said the global supply chain, long global supply chains is what we want. We always believed in more regional setups. There are some exceptions you can only afford one aircraft engine factory in the world. You don't have 5 or so. So there are some exceptions, but fundamentally we always had, and we even fostered a regional footprint. And we built this over the last 4 years. This is one of the main things I've been doing at Honeywell. We used to have like more than 300 factories 3 years ago, and we're down to 180 now. And the idea is to really have regional manufacturing hubs. We, to 85%, we produce in Europe what we sell in Europe, we produce in North America what we sell in North America, and in Asia what we sell in Asia. And that has helped us tremendously through the whole pandemic crisis. On average, we lost 1 production day per plant over the last 2 years because of that. So it just proves you that it is not only a theoretical concept, it is a practical reality that, that is really, really helpful if you really want to understand and manage a more resilient supply chain. But the biggest problem most companies have is that they do this. They build regional hubs or whatever, but they forget that they have a supply base that services them. And then you don't have a problem in your own factories, but you have a problem with your suppliers, and you can't get the materials, you can't get whatever you need. Semiconductors is just one example. That means the way you collaborate with suppliers has to be absolutely part of how you think about the supply chain. And the days are over where you, as a supply chain guy like me, and I own procurement for Honeywell too, where you just smack the fist down to your supplier and yell at them because you don't get what you need. So they say, thank you very much right now, but you don't get what you need. So we have to find different ways. We have to find really good collaboration with these folks. And also our supply base is regionalized. To help you understand. So we import stuff like anybody else, but we really try to have a very local or regionalized supply base. And you can do this if you make the right decisions and if you have a pretty high level of automation, because then the whole problem of labor arbitrage doesn't really play so much into your P&L. But you have to make those very strategic decisions years ago in advance, and then you can actually build something that you can afford. I'm very in tune with a semiconductor problem because I run 2 wafer fabs. Honeywell runs wafer fabs, so we make semiconductors ourselves. And guess what? We're the only American manufacturer. We're 100% American semiconductors that we make. And we make them in Texas and we make them in Minnesota. So we have 2 wafer fabs there, which serve very special purposes. One is 100% dedicated to the space industry because they need special kinds of semiconductors. Those need to be radiation-hardened semiconductors because they need to survive out there in space. And it was a very specific requirement by the government that this needs to be manufactured in the US. And now we all find out that it's a good idea to have this actually local, and all the other semiconductors come back now too. The risk mitigation is 100% needs to really understand. You need to understand what is beyond your own direct level of influence, where you think you have an influence. You have influence in your own four walls, but you don't necessarily influence your supply base unless you can really digitally connect into your supply base. And into your supply base means connect to their ERP systems, know what they're doing, how they're doing. We're using multiple systems to do this. We live track all of our shipments, whether it's on an airplane or whether it's on an ocean container or wherever that is, just to understand where is what and what do we need to do to mitigate our own exposure here. And so I'm in operations for a long time, and I learned very early in my career that the more I know, the more data I have, the better it is. Because I then can take, in supply chain, everybody has a good anecdote why things don't work the way they should work. You know, that ship is delayed, or this is or whatever, this is out of expiration date or something. But it's very important to find a way to consolidate this huge amount of data into a really digestible form, something that you can action on, that you can understand. And so we built a digital system that basically connects everything with everything. When a couple of years ago when I started, I found out that I spent 60% of my IT budget just for data acquisition. Because I didn't know, so I needed to make a connection from this SAP system to that TMC transport management system, and to kind of figure this out. And we decided that couldn't be the future. So we built a huge data infrastructure that basically consolidates everything with everything. I mean, I don't know how else to say that. Every ERP system, every transport management system, every machine in the factory, everything's basically feeding data into a huge data infrastructure. And then the next really important step was, I shouldn't say we fired IT, but we actually did. We built our own IT team or tech team within supply chain. The reason why this is important is you need to combine the domain knowledge of the supply chain guys with the technology knowledge of the tech guys, basically. And that needs to happen together. And now we have a really interesting a team that does this. I have my own data scientists and all of this. And for instance, this is what we call our digital ops platform. This is something, I look at it, and I can see basically everything that happens anywhere in the world at any given moment. And it's tiered to 8 tiers, so it goes really down to the shop floor. And if something happens in Mexico City that all of a sudden inventory comes up by 200 million overnight, I can call the guy in Mexico City and say, what's going on here? What did you do? And then we find out things before they really go bad. And it's just an example, but you have to connect this in a digital fashion. And the bad news is you can't buy it. There's no product out there that can do this. It's impossible because it's so specific to what you do. There is no consolidator. There are companies who tried to do things in the past, building these platforms where everybody kind of tied in, but even them, to onboard a new supplier or something, that's a months-long project. It's impossible. You can't. It's very difficult. I'll give you an example. We have earlier in the year when we realized, oh my God, this inflation is really a bad thing. So what we need to do from a pricing perspective. You can imagine you have roughly a million BOMs, bill of materials. You have 2 million products or components that go into this, and you sell a million products. If you want to kind of merge this together and say, okay, because I have a price increase here on my steel in that product, what does it do to the product I sell? That would have been a 9-month project, and it would have cost $10 million or something like this. It took 2 guys 2 weeks to do this, to manage this. And then we were able to give our commercial partners and say, listen, pay attention to this product group, this product group, this product group, and you need to raise price by 15%, by 8%, by 7%, to maintain your margin. And so this is how the company was able to get ahead of that, to get ahead of the price cost curve and maintain their margin profile. It would have been impossible years ago. So it's already deeply ingrained in what we do. So I'm super happy about this. Now let's switch over a little bit to sustainability. And I just wanted to make one statement. We've been doing, this is nothing new for us. We've been doing, since 2004, we reduced our greenhouse gas emissions by 90%. So it's what we do. But the good thing is, the company operates like this. We have our carbon neutrality pledge 2035, like most other companies, but we actually have a really good plan how to do it. It's not just let's see how we're going to do this in a couple of years. So I think we have a really good plan. And I want to talk about this. This is the technologies that we have in-house, and that's the beauty of it. I can play with all of this in my own factories, and we don't want to read through this, but those are technologies we have in-house that has some sort of a positive sustainability impact. And so I'm usually the guinea pig. If they come up with something new, I can utilize and use that. And I know how hard this is. That's why it sounds so easy, but it's really hard to do this on a daily basis. And those are the things we are right now focusing. That's what our operations is focusing. That's what the company is focusing. It's energy storage, is renewable fuels. We're the largest provider of renewable aircraft fuel in the world, for instance. So we live this day in and day out. And everybody who is in operations on my team, every day we talk about projects. What can we do? How can we improve this? We have a project, for instance. We have 14 factories in China, and they're all going to be green factories within the next 3 years. That means they are basically carbon neutral, but not in 10 years, but within the next 3 years. And the reason why that is, and here comes, I always hear that it comes at a cost. I actually believe it's the opposite. You know, if you are more efficient, you do more with less. This usually has a good impact on your cost structure. In Asia and in China in particular, if you are a green factory, you are exempt from power shutdowns. So that is for me a way to build a resilient supply chain, because if I invest this today, I know that tomorrow I will have less disruptions, because the government, and it's not only the Chinese, it's all over the world, they want us to do these things. And if you have a good plan and a good concept, it's actually very beneficial for companies. So I don't think it's something that is super costly and we're all going to have to pay with our wealth with it. I do think that's just the next evolutionary step of humankind, and that's how we are able to overcome those obstacles. So I think that's all I had to say. So thank you very much for your attention. And like I said, I hope I was able to give you a little bit of an overview of how the industrial world looks at supply chain management, what's important. I do think it's super, super important, and I hope that you understand that it's just the beginning. You know, I've been dreaming of a seamless, touchless supply chain my whole life, and I really do think that it's going to become reality pretty soon. So I hope you can all help with that. Thank you.